Hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here. It is Basketball Rewind, and I am here today. I am here to talk to you after the draft lottery has wrapped itself up, and I'm here to actually do a little bit of a different episode. Like, comment, and subscribe on your way in, and let's get this party started. Today, I am not going to be giving my thoughts in depth about how I feel like the draft went, but instead, I'm going to be going through a mock draft and just talking about, sorry, I meant to say lottery, how the lottery went, but I'm here to kind of go over a mock draft. I'm going to be going through a couple of these mock drafts just to see how I and how my opinions match up with the general census that you're as we see this here. Ignore these ads on the side because I am not sponsored by them, but yeah. Dallas obviously got the number one pick. I am not going to debate whether or not it's rigged or not. What I will say is Dallas got tremendously lucky. This is one of the lowest chances of this happening. And of course, San Antonio also moved up as well. Philly did not lose their pick, and you can see the rest of the order here, Toronto falling back to 9. Based on how Masai reacted, this is not the outcome. And I do want to say that, just because any GM, anyone is able to kind of figure things out on the fly, does not necessarily mean that that's what what was the plan all along. It's just it means that they're good at adapting. So we will see in terms of the Raptors what they do from here. But I do think that there are a couple different options, and not just for the Raptors. I think that this is still a really good draft outside of the top four, but it does appear that there is a sort of a top five-ish consensus that seems to be, forming from the overall draft consensus online. So we will see how that plays out. I'm going to first look at NBA.com's, I guess they've partnered up with Bleacher Report here, and I'm going to go through what they said this time. And so let's just see what they said. We'll go, 1 through 14, and then from there, I'll just kind of give my thoughts overall. I'm not going to read every single comparison or whatever, but I will sometimes look at a couple of them. So yeah. So the first is obviously Cooper Flag going to, as the number one pick, going to the Dallas Mavericks. The thing that I see here is obviously Kevin Garnett as well as Jalen Johnson. Again, I'm not going to focus too heavily on these comparison points. I don't know if I agree with the comparison points of those two players because Kevin Garnett, he was much more wiry, much more powerful. Sorry, I think Cooper Flag is much more powerful with his drives than Garnett was. Garnett was relentless. So, I don't want to be, I'm sure someone will say, no, it wasn't this, but I think that they're very different types of players, even if you're looking at Garnett year one. Jalen Johnson, that's an interesting comparison because I do think Jalen Johnson has really grown offensively, but I think that Cooper Flag is a much different player than that right now. So yeah. What I will say, though, is he is definitely probably going to go number one. I'm also going to ignore things like the size, because these have been updated since the combine, and even though this is coming after the combine, I believe, during the combine, it's still not the most up-to-date information in terms of the size. So, for example, Dylan Harper is not now testing as 6'6", but 6'4" and a quarter or whatever. I guess someone would argue he's 6'6" in shoes, but yeah. Him going number 2 makes sense with the Spurs if the Spurs keep it. I feel a little bit differently. I think that they could go in the direction of an Ace Bailey, but mainly because of the construction of their team, and I think that if they're looking at high upside down the road, I think I would lean towards Bailey. But there is an argument for Harper. I think Harper's more likely on the Spurs if they end up trading the pick in something like the Giannis sweepstakes that I will talk about in a different video. Um, Gonna go to the next one. This is where I would have Ace. So really, the first linchpin in the draft in terms of how the order will go is do I think that the Spurs are going to keep their draft pick or are they going to move it? In my opinion, I think that the Spurs are more likely to move the pick, and so that changes. That's why I think Harper at that pick makes more sense. But VJ going next, VJ going top 4 makes a lot of sense. If VJ if Ace is there, I think that Philly was more likely to take Ace. But the consensus top 4 as we continue on, Ace Bailey is there. Now, they see VJ Edgecombe as Andrew Wiggins. I don't know if I see Wiggins. I can see Wiggins like from a defensive standpoint, but yeah. Iman Shumpert, I don't really see that as much. And then, of course, the typical Victor Oladipo. Now, a lot of people see this as kind of an insult. I don't see this as an insult because Victor Oladipo, in his absolute best year, was an all NBA, all defense level guy. So this is just not an insult at all. I think that it should be high praise. I'd love to have him as a Raptor. Doesn't look like that's going to happen, but we'll see. Charlotte Hornets come next. Kind of went over that already. I actually made the Brandon Miller and Rashard Lewis comparisons myself, so I agree with those. I think Rashard Lewis is more of like the floor that you're hoping that he reaches, just as the floor. I think some people have compared him to KD. I think this is just a little bit too high praise. I don't think I think the Michael Porter Jr. is too close of a comparison. I don't think that it is as close of a comparison. I actually see him closer to some sort of version of like a Brandon Ingram with higher upside to shoot, shoot pull-up threes. It's one thing that Ingram has done well is he can create on his own, but he does it better in the mid-range, and he's a better catch-and-shoot player. I think that he could be better offensively than Ingram, and I think that he also has a better frame than Ingram just in terms of his lower body. I think that's a lot stronger with Bailey. So not bad. I largely agree with the top 4, but just not the order. The Utah Jazz is where things get interesting. They have him taking Jeremiah Fears. I've been following this online, we'll say. I'll just leave it at that. And it does look like Trey Johnson is more likely to go there. So I don't know if I agree with Jeremiah Fears, but it's possible that they might. I think that they really were banking on getting like a Harper, and it just doesn't seem like Harper's quite going to be there. And I think that there's a very big difference between what Harper can do and frankly what Fears does, especially since both rely on getting to the rim as a big component of their offense. Just Harper has that handle and is able to get in and out of spaces and also has the strength to be able to finish. I do see Harper as a point guard. I know that's like a big, point of contention sometimes, but for now, let's just say he's a point guard. And if he's a point guard, we're going to treat him like a point guard. Washington Wizards, he's in this mock, he's taking Trey Johnson. I actually think that they're more likely to take Queen here. I think Queen fits next to Sar. I don't think the Wizards are happy with how the draft ended up, obviously. But yeah, I don't agree with this Tyler Hero. That's a very interesting comparison. But, I mean, I feel like Tyler Hero is more advanced as a primary playmaker. But I'd have to look at Tyler, like again, I don't know if they're making it in comparison to now versus then, but I do think that Trey Johnson projects to be a 3-level scorer. He does struggle getting to the rim, but when he gets to the rim, though the finishing does need to improve, overall, I think that there's the tools that are there. He knows how to make plays. He makes good primary and secondary reads, frankly, and perhaps with more spacing in the NBA, which is just natural because it's a bigger court, different dimensions. There might be. He's an NBA player in my opinion. We'll find out for sure soon enough. But I think that he's gonna have a decent upside in this draft. I have him going 5. Malawatch is the next one. Now, this is interesting because this is one where I see it happening. I've heard the Mark Williams comparison. Maybe they're just doing like school-to-school comparisons, but that's a whole other discussion. The thing with Malawatch, just to keep it short with these, is, how do I put it? The Pelicans make sense because Joe Dumars, the new president of basketball operations, who took over for David Griffin, he made a comment about the importance of having 2 bigs, and this is a place where I'm like, okay, you're gonna keep Zion. You have Yves Missi. If you're talking about getting 2 bigs, are you gonna get Malawatch? They don't have any other bigs. The closest big that they have is not a center. It would be Kelly Olynyk. So that's, I mean, again, we will see, but yeah. I do have Malawatch in this range. I could see him now, as things are kind of playing out, him going to the Raptors, but we'll see. Brooklyn Nets taking Queen. I don't see this. I think they're going for a guard, and if Trey Johnson does not fall, they are more likely to take Fears. But again, in this mock draft, Fears went early to the Utah Jazz, so that's not possible. So then this alternative reality, it's a little bit different. Noah Senge, I actually like this pick for the Raptors. I know he's a little bit raw, but he has the highest upside. I think other people are going to be honing in on a Carter Bryant, and I can see the reasons for that. But to me, I'm still not sure if I'm going for a role player in this specific draft. So, say la vie. Houston Rockets. Now, Concaniple fell early here. Some people have him going as high as the New Orleans. I could see that. Basically, Houston is not interested in taking their pick. They're probably going to trade it. They're going to take BPA. Based on who's on the board in this world, it would probably be Colin Murray Boyles or someone else. But again, I just don't see them, taking a pick. I could see them going for Kasparis, depending on how they view Reed Shepherd. Is he a point guard? Is he not? That old age, conversation. Is Giannis there? Are they trading the pick? I have no idea, but it's definitely going to be interesting. Portland Trailblazers had a really good middle of the season, and so but they didn't quite make the playoffs, so they are in this position. They're 11th, and what's interesting about them being 11th is right here. They can go in a lot of different directions. I don't see them taking Kasparis because they recently drafted Scoot Henderson. However people think about Scoot Henderson, they want to give him a chance. And also, frankly, they have another guy in Anthony Simons who they are trying to trade away. So I don't necessarily see the fit here with Kasparis. I could see Kasparis either going earlier. But yeah, the Bulls taking Asanuel. This actually makes sense if Asa falls this far. He's someone that I would have on the Raptors' big board, maybe not number 1. I do believe in his shooting, but yeah, I've seen other mock drafts. I'm not gonna pick them right now, but I've seen other mock drafts go with a guard here, like Jace Richardson, and I don't agree with Jace Richardson going to Chicago, considering Chicago literally just re-signed Lonzo. They seemingly are invested in Giddey. They are seemingly invested in Kobe White, right? Because of all those reasons, it makes sense for them to go more for a big, but stranger things have happened. Just to kind of go back, Kobe White for Yakachonis. Again, I don't know if he has the creation upside, but we'll see. I do like Kobe White a lot. Con Knipple, this is an interesting comparison. He's definitely not this size, but that is an interesting comparison. I see this more than Kevin Huerter. I think Kevin Huerter he's a very good player, and I really like him, but I don't see him right now as being able to make as many off-the-bounce plays as a Con Knipple. So yeah, Sadiq Bey, I don't necessarily know if I see that. Jeremy Grant for this one is interesting. I have to think on this one. I don't know if I see this as his comparison. I like how they say like feels already Raptorsy. It does feel Raptorsy, but I think it's the on ball skill that I've noticed and his improvement throughout the season has given him the reason that he should be there. Atlanta Hawks, I don't know. In their draft, they're going with Colin Murray Boyles. The reason why I don't know is they don't currently have a GM. There's obviously some people, including they talked to, I think, Bob Myers recently, and interestingly enough, Giannis's agent is in the running for this type of a job. So, to be determined, we'll say. Next you have Jace Richardson. Again, if they took Harper, I don't know, because he is 6 feet. These are incorrect measurements. I don't see why they would take Jace Richardson here. I'm gonna stop the draft here, obviously, because then you're out of the, you're out, you're out of the lottery here. But yeah, Jace Richardson to Reed Shepherd. I don't know if I also agree with that comparison. But I think he's going to be a solid pro. It's just the measurements, him being an undersized guard, by NBA standards, that is, it makes it very tough. So these two teams, I'm not really sure, because it's for San Antonio, it really depends on who they're picking with that first pick. If they keep the pick, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas Colin Murray Boyles with Atlanta, again, I don't know who the GM is. I don't see him as Julius Randle, because Julius Randle, I guess Colin Murray Boyles has good footwork in the post, but I don't know if I see him as Julius Randle per se. So that's that. Those are my thoughts on Bleacher Report combined with NBA's latest mock draft. Hope you guys like these. Something different. It's a little bit of a tidbit. So yeah. Before I get out of here, just to talk about the Raptors and their draft, I think there's going to be a couple of different options for the number 1 pick that they have. That is, I think that there's also some options with the 2nd pick, the Portland pick that they currently own. So, in terms of the draft and how the lottery shook out, it's not great. I think there is reason to be frustrated with the season that we just had. There are positives to come out of the season for sure. There was some developmental upside swings that we saw, but there are also, I think, fair critiques of the season. This isn't that podcast for that. This is podcast episode per se. But I think at 9, you're still in the lottery. Though you're at the back half of the lottery, there are still a good solid 3 potential guys that could be there, and then 1 guy like a Noah that you would probably be reaching for, but I think it's a fair reach, and I think he continues to move up the draft boards to the point where it's not. Carter Bryant is 1. I'm not sure if I talked about him. If I haven't, but I have seen him around 12 on some people's mocks. I think if you're looking to get an OG skill set, I think he's great. He's that prototypical 3-and-D wing. My challenge here is that we've struggled a lot. Maybe it's an overcorrect, but to me, we've struggled a lot with self-creation, and I would like to have another self-creator, someone who could really create advantages, not just someone who's you're spraying out stuff to. Because at the end of the day, Darko's going to have his hands full from a Raptors perspective. He's going to have his hands full this year, and we'll see what happens, but just from a scheme standpoint, it's not going to be easy, and so you want as many people who can create and potentially create at different levels of the floor. And again, a 3-and-D guy is not quite there. I would like someone with a little bit more upside, but especially since this is probably one of the last times, hypothetically, that we will be drafting this low if things go well. If things don't go well, then obviously you're back here and it's a completely different story. On this channel, I do like to kind of give more of a nuanced take. I do like to cover the pros, the cons. I used to have the good, the bad, the ugly, but yeah, the pros, the cons, and I'm gonna keep doing that and kind of cover things from a nuanced perspective. So there's going to be times when like it's going to be a little bit more positive. Sometimes it's going to feel a little bit more negative. I usually just, me personally, I usually just try to put the information out there and then see how people feel about it. And then I can add in my own opinion, within that. But it's first and foremost is getting the information out there. So here's the reporting or here's whatever, and then here are my thoughts. But really, like, I'm trying to do it in as least a judgmental way possible. Not because I'm hiding my opinion. I think people sometimes get that confused, but it's more like I want to, my opinion, though it matters, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter, but it's more so this is how to interpret the stuff. Hope that makes sense. Hope everyone's good for summer. And we will be doing more lives for Summer League when that comes along. So yeah. That is all Basketball Rewind. It's Kenyon. Take care. Peace.